Kamala Harris has been struggling to keep the Latino and Black male voters who have traditionally voted Democrat. Recent polls show she's been having a hard time keeping some of them, at least, from turning toward Donald Trump. Nita, let me just bring you in here for a minute on that. What are your thoughts on that?
I was listening to Representative James Clyburn, of course, from South Carolina, and we know how crucial he was in the 2020 election and all of that. He's a Black man and a politician, and he said that he does not see and hear the words that match the polling and the reporting about the support of Black men for the vice president. And I'm going to have to go with a Representative Clyburn in that particular topic and that line of conversation, simply because reporters will go into a certain place and maybe look at a poll result and try to match a story or interview with the poll result. But someone who's been in politics as long as Mr. Clyburn and who has talked and visited Black churches and has attended events, I'm going to kind of go with what he says, that this 20% of Black male voters who might support the Republican ticket, he says that he doesn't see it that way from personal contact with people.
Doug, how about you? Talk to us a bit about the demographics between 2020 and 2024.
Absolutely. Let me first say, and just pick up on what Nita was saying with the Black vote. You know, historically, obviously, and we've been talking about this in the past couple of hours, the Democratic Party has been seen as basically the backbone. Blacks went for Democratic Party. Obviously, dating back to the civil rights movement, it was seen as, you know, the one-stop shop. If you were a Black voter, you went to the Democratic Party because they were the party that actually took care of you and did things for you and advanced your rights in America. That has been seen less and less, perhaps, and perhaps part of the disillusionment, I'll only say part, if there is to have been some erosion of Black support, maybe it was in the Obama era, because a lot of Blacks really invested their faith in Obama. Some felt disappointed, not all. Massive numbers of Black voters obviously remain dead set with the Democratic Party. I'll just give a few numbers. Let's bring them up. Specifically with the Black vote, and Nita's right, the narrative has been that somehow the Black vote has been eroded and they've been drifting away from Harris to Trump, and she needs to keep up the Black support and do what Biden was doing. So if you see, back in 2020, 87%. Biden got 87% of the Black vote. And you say, wow, that is an enormous, that's almost 9 out of 10 Black voters. But actually, Obama did even better back in 2012. He got 93% of the Black vote. I mean, almost 100% practically. So it's ironic that you could speak of 80% or 81 or 82% Black vote for Kamala, and she's not doing so well. You know, the poll starts, oh, she's trailing with the Black vote. And so a lot of people are trying to say that there is a margin of error in this polling, and that perhaps this narrative about Blacks drifting away from Kamala has been overstated. I'll just show you some of the other demographics quickly. Biden was 57% women. Kamala needs to keep that up, and obviously hitting hard on the abortion issue and protecting, safeguarding women's reproductive rights. That is seen as being a big vote getter. And I'll even Liz Cheney, the Republican, staunch Republican who went on the trail campaigning for her, basically pleaded with American women, you can vote for Kamala Harris, and you don't have to tell your husbands about it. You don't have to tell your Republican voting husbands about it. So there's a sense that with women, perhaps she can raise the margins that Biden had at 57% back in 2020. Latinos, it's going to be very crucial to keep that number high. Biden got 65% in 2020. She's going to keep those margins high, especially in Nevada, Arizona, states close to the border or on the border with Mexico, and that's going to be a giant, giant issue. And the youth vote, because we constantly hear about the youth, but what does that mean? Youth is a monolithic category, right? Youth, 18 to 29. I mean, you know, I love, you know, pollsters tend to try to lump everyone into this easy narrative. The fact of the matter is, yeah, in youth, there are some young men who only look at TikTok and play video games all day and don't get their news from any reliable sources. And they're angry and they tend to vote Republican and even drift to the far right. But they're a fraction of the youth vote. We don't have a really more granular look and a broader picture of the youth vote. And my instinct, and maybe Nita could speak to this, is that it's probably a little dangerous to lump all youth into one demographic category and just assume that because they're 18 to 29, they're necessarily going to vote as a block in the same general patterns.
Well, Nita, I'm going to let you speak to that in just a sec, but I saw your eyebrows go up when Doug talked about the women vote. So tell me about that first.
Well, about the women vote, well, what I wanted to talk about was that the monolith of the Black voter and the Black male voter. And I just visited Texas. I did a sweep through the Southeast. And in Texas, I was with friends, a Black married couple, man and woman married, with a child 6 years old. They are both entrepreneurs. And their issue was transgender athletes, because they don't want their daughter to have to compete against a transgender person for scholarships. So that the Black community is not a monolith, because people don't necessarily associate that particular issue with Black voters. But it is a concern. They are not possibly the only Black family with that particular concern. And the other point about the demographics, let's talk about the ground game, because Black voters and Black people engaged in civic life have been working on a ground game since the installation of Kamala Harris as vice president. So the first month of her service as vice president, Black people across the country were organizing to make sure she would be reelected. And then when the campaign changed, that ground game was in place to support her candidacy this time around. And so when we look at polling, the polling isn't talking to people who are knocking doors and mothers who might be telling sons or husbands, vote for the vice president, because maybe you're interested in your sports events or your video games. But in this family, we are voting for the vice president. And so in some of these states, I do think we're going to see some of the ground game kick in.
Well, you mentioned the talking to your sons and your husbands
Yes.
and the like, and that is a key part of this specific demographic
Sure.
as well. And you're originally from the state of Georgia.
I am.
And this is a very
Yes.
important issue, particularly there. Kamala Harris hasn't been shy about particularly targeting this demographic, really going in for them with her opportunity economy, her offers.
Sure.
It doesn't seem to have done much. Trump still has really strong support. How do you explain this?
Well, I think that the support for Mr. Trump comes from a totally different place. And I was discussing this with students today. And it has to do with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017. And so when we keep hearing about the tax cuts and the benefits from the Trump administration, people criticize that particular aspect and say, well, that's tax cuts for rich people, that's for billionaires. But no, the 2017 tax cuts benefit families and families that have comfortable incomes and even high incomes. And some of those voters are not the millionaires and the billionaires. These are the people who go to work, like all the hardworking people here, and want to benefit from a tax system that they think is taking care of them. And for me, that is a huge strength of the program of Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. And I don't think people talk enough about how that tax plan is attractive to people in the lower tax bracket than Elon Musk and those people.